response, particularly in letters to the editor of my interview with Senator Zed Seselja yesterday, and certainly his opinion piece in the Canberra Times regarding voluntary euthanasia and the restoration of the rights of Territorians, both in the Northern Territory and the ACT. That was the motivation of Senator David Leyonhjelm, leader of the Liberal Democrats. The Senate rejected the bill. It would have allowed the territories to make their own laws on voluntary euthanasia. The vote 36-34. Did the Senate get it right? Let's ask the Senator himself. He joins us now. Senator David Leyonhjelm, welcome back to 2CC Breakfast. Did the Senate get it right?
No, it didn't, in my opinion. I'm afraid it's set back the democratic rights of people living in the ACT and the Northern Territory yet again. Basically, you could view yourselves in those two territories as second-class citizens. Your governments, you elect your governments, you have a properly responsible government which you vote for, and then its powers are limited by the Commonwealth Parliament.
What happened last night, and clearly as the sponsor, you've spoken to many colleagues as senators, what were the key issues for those senators that I guess you identified were going to vote no? Was it faith? Was it ethics? Was it trust? Give us a sense, David Leyonhjelm. What were your colleagues telling you?
Well, a lot of them saw it as an issue of voting for or against assisted suicide or voluntary euthanasia, as you term it, and responded in those terms. In fact, the fact that they viewed it in those terms is what convinced a few people to change their vote from yesterday morning. We had the numbers yesterday morning very clearly, and then by last night we didn't have the numbers, and the difference was attitudes to voluntary euthanasia. So I suppose that issue was the key aspect. But in fairness, there were quite a lot of senators who saw it for what it was, which was a bill to get the Commonwealth out of assisted suicide and allow the elected governments of the ACT and Northern Territory to take on that issue. And there are quite a number of senators that I know of, including the Territory senators, with one exception, who, now let me think, there's...
Senators David Smith and Senator Zed Seselja.
Yeah, that's right. David Smith is in that category. He supported territory rights, but he opposes assisted suicide. Senator Malarndirri McCarthy and Nigel Scullion, both from the Northern Territory, they are in exactly the same situation. They saw it for what it was. My bill was not about assisted suicide specifically. It was about giving Territorians the right to elect a government which could legislate on assisted suicide. All three of them are in fact opposed to assisted suicide, but in favour of territory rights. Zed Seselja is in favour of territory rights but opposed to assisted suicide. He opposed the bill. So in the end, a number of people who had said publicly and to me in conversation, I am going to support this, changed their minds. And what changed their minds appears to have been a lobbying effort by a group of doctors who came to Parliament House over the last couple of days and had been doing the rounds of the offices.
Members of the AMA? Members of the AMA?
I don't know much about them, I'm afraid. I can't tell you. I've just heard about them secondhand.
What's the next step? Senator Eric Abetz says the matter is now settled. Andrew Barr, the Chief Minister of the ACT, says the fight isn't over. Will you try to overturn the Andrews bill? And is it more, as you've correctly said, it's about restoration of territory rights? Do we need to delete those choices that local governments make, those Territorian governments, and just simply let the territories make decisions, duly elected, to be able to legislate? Our listeners, 2cc.net.au listeners, senators, say 76% yes. They want the territory to have the right to legislate these matters. 24% say no. What's the next step?
What's the next step? I think, frankly, this is going to be a difficult issue to bring forward for a few years now as far as the territory rights, or as far as the territories are concerned. Where it's likely to go, now that's just speculation. Andrew Leigh, for example, is intending to bring the same version of my bill forward in the House in an attempt to keep it on the agenda and keep the issue live.
Yes.
And I wish him well, and I hope that succeeds. But I guess if I'm being realistic, it's most likely that the impetus for changing the laws affecting the territories will come as a result of the states considering and reconsidering and considering and reconsidering again their position on assisted suicide. We already have Victoria's bill to take effect in the middle of next year. The other states have been considering the issue, debating it. So far they've voted against it with the exception of Victoria, but it's not all done yet, and inevitably that will come back. The issue is live. It has massive support in the community, and I think it's hard to say, oh, that's over now. Let's forget all about it, when the governments around the country are out of step with the people. So I think the impetus will come from the states looking at it, debating it one by one over the next coming years. It may take decades perhaps, but over coming years they will gradually approve it. It will then become absolutely impossible for the Commonwealth to sit there and say, no, elected parliaments in the territories can't do it.
Yeah, New South Wales, you're a senator from New South Wales, David Leyonhjelm. If you were terminally ill and a voluntary euthanasia scheme was in place, would you consider using it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm in the fortunate position of being a veterinarian, and what's his name, Mitschke?
Philip Mitschke.
Philip, that's his name. He's on the record as saying, if you want to ensure you have the means of ending your life, be friendly with a vet. Now, the reason is because we have access to euthanasia solution for animals, which of course we use on a regular basis. People are forever having the animals euthanized. And euthanasia solution is an option for many people. It is certainly an option from my point of view as well. And I wouldn't want to end up being a helpless vegetable with my body failing all around me, and totally dependent on others and in pain and miserable. David Goodall's example is instructive, I think. He was 104 years old. His mind was sharp. He was alert and had all his mental capacities, but his body was just failing around him. He said, time is up, I want to go. That's the kind of scenario that I have in mind for assisted suicide. We're not talking about people who are depressed, who are suffering from dementia or confused about life and getting dotty and don't know what they're doing. You can't give informed consent. But for someone for a government to say to David Goodall, we know better than you. You've got all your marbles. You're one of the smartest blokes in Australia. You're a brilliant scientist. And here we are saying, no, you can't make this decision about your life. Utterly unconscionable, in my view.
Finally, your reaction to Senator Fraser Anning's first speech.
I was there in the chamber listening to it. Fraser and I worked together along with Cory Bernardi in our Loose Alliance, and he's an individual I quite like as a person. I must say there were times in that speech where I sort of thought, oh yeah, righto, I couldn't go there. It's not my cup of tea at all. But I thought he's got a perfect right, of course. If you can't say what you say, what he said in Parliament, where the hell can you say it? The law, common law, our historical heritage we inherited from Britain is that what you say in Parliament is absolutely untouchable. So he had every right to say what he said. Everybody else has every right to agree or disagree with him. So I think he's well and truly within his rights. I don't agree with him on a number of points he made in his speech. The return of the White Australia policy, I don't think that's a very good idea at all. Blocking all Muslim immigration, he doesn't distinguish between good Muslims and bad Muslims. Even every Muslim I ever talk to acknowledges some Muslims are bad and shouldn't be let in, but not all of them are bad. And I just find his formula simplistic. But he has every right to say it. He's got a right to his views. the rest of us have a right to agree or disagree.
Senator, thank you so much for your time. We much appreciate it.